Marcus Hale finished his last few notes in the glass-walled conference room and slipped his tablet under his arm. He straightened his tie, gave a warm nod to his assistant, and stepped out into the busy hallway. Downtown was alive with the late afternoon rush. People hurried past storefronts. The scent of fresh coffee drifted from a nearby cafe, and the sun cast long, golden rays between tall buildings. Marcus felt pleased with how the new community center design had been received. He carried his blueprints to his car with a light heart. In the parking garage, he found his silver sedan nestled between a delivery truck and a hatchback. The concrete beams echoed with distant footsteps, and the soft hum of fluorescent lights lent a calm, steady rhythm. Marcus unlocked the car, opened the passenger door, and slid in, balancing his tablet on his knee. He studied the layout of windows. He had drawn, imagining how light would pour into the hall when the project was complete. It was a satisfying moment, seeing months of work come to life on paper. Just then, the echo of footsteps grew louder. 2 police officers emerged from the shadows. Their badges caught the light as they approached Marcus's door. He looked up, surprised but unafraid. "Good evening," he said in a friendly tone. "How can I help you?" The taller officer, Officer Daniels, narrowed his eyes. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. Marcus smiled politely and lifted his tablet. "I'm an architect. Was meeting a client in that building," he said, gesturing toward the glass tower above. "I'm just heading home now." The officer's gaze flicked to the blueprints. He frowned. "You're just parking here? No reason to be lingering?" he asked. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his chest. The question carried an edge Marcus had not expected. He closed his tablet and held out his identification. "Here's my badge from the firm," he said calmly. "You can see I'm registered to this address." The second officer, Officer Peters, stepped forward. His tone was colder. "You expect us to believe that?" he said, suspicion heavy in his voice. Marcus opened his wallet and produced his building permit. As he handed it over, he thought about how many times he had shown similar documents without trouble. He felt a flicker of worry, but tried to stay composed. Officer Daniels folded his arms and stared at the permit as though he found it unbelievable. "Wait here," he said. Turning on his heel, he spoke into his radio, calling for backup, though there was no clear danger. Marcus watched through the windshield as the officer signaled to a distant part of the garage. The lights seemed dimmer now. He took in a slow breath and reminded himself to stay calm. He glanced at the polished floor, the neat rows of parked cars, the silent cameras mounted overhead. Everything felt surreal. Moments later, the officers returned. Their expressions had shifted. Daniels looked annoyed. Peters looked grim. Without warning, Daniels grabbed Marcus's arm and twisted it behind his back. The sudden move made Marcus wince. "Stop resisting," Daniels barked. Marcus opened his mouth to correct him. He had not resisted, but the other officer yanked him harder. The metal cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Pain flared as they tightened too much. Marcus bit back a sharp exhale. He felt the rough edge of the metal bite into his skin. "Please," he said quietly. "My hands are bare. You can see I did nothing wrong." Peters roughly patted Marcus down, their hands brushing over pockets over the folds of his shirt. Marcus stood stiff, too surprised to protest further. He watched as Peters tore a small rip in his jacket sleeve. The fabric snagged but did not tear through completely. Fabric's edge caught on the officer's glove. Marcus wondered why they behaved with such hostility. He had never met these men before. His heart thudded as fear seeped in. Nearby, a security guard stepped out from behind a column. He held up his hand in warning, ready to intervene. Officer Daniels sneered at him. "Stay back," he snapped. The guard hesitated, then backed away with a troubled look. From above, the red digits of the garage's timer flickered, marking the growing tension in the air. Marcus felt trapped between the cold concrete walls and the flashing lights of the patrol car he was being led toward. In the back seat of the cruiser, Marcus gingerly flexed his wrists, wincing at the burn of the cuffs. He tried to calm his racing heart by pressing his forehead against the cool metal of the cage divider. Every fiber of his being told him this was wrong, but he had to stay composed. He glanced out the small window as Peters turned to start the engine. Through the glass, he saw cars driving past on the street above, unaware of the injustice unfolding below. Then, an idea sparked. He reached into his coat pocket, balancing the cuffs in the low-ceilinged space. His fingers closed around his smartphone. Carefully, he retrieved it and unlocked the screen. Scrolled quickly to a saved contact, the mayor's office. He recalled Mayor Sanders had been at a community forum just last month, praising his work on a new library renovation. It felt bold, but he had nothing to lose. He pressed the call button. The dialing tone seemed impossibly loud in the small. Car Officer Daniels stood at the driver's side, arms folded, watching him. Marcus cleared his throat. "Hello. This is Marcus Hale," he said into the phone. His voice was calm. "I'm an architect, and I am being detained and treated roughly by 2 officers here in Garage C at 5th and Main. I'd like to speak with Mayor Sanders, please. This is an urgent matter of civil rights and safety." He paused, letting the words sink in. The officer behind the wheel frowned, but he did not shut the call off. Marcus left a voicemail for the mayor's scheduler, giving his location and insisting on an immediate inquiry. Then he sent a quick text to his wife, in custody. "Unjust. Call me as soon as you get this." He tapped send. He typed another message to his colleague. "Wrongful arrest. Hold down the fort. I'll explain." In the silence that followed, the officers exchanged uneasy looks. Marcus leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. He pictured sunny afternoons at the design studio, brainstorming ideas with his team. He thought of the community members who trusted him to uplift their neighborhood. He refused to let fear overtake him. Suddenly, the cruiser lurched forward. The engine roared, tires squealed on concrete, and they were moving out of the garage. Marcus's gaze fixed on the small window again. But this time he noticed the bright lights of police vehicles gathering at the entrance. Curious patrol cars curved behind them. Behind his closed eyes, he heard the faint echo of sirens. He felt a shift in the air as if the officers guarding him sensed something serious was coming. The ride to the precinct felt short and tense. Marcus's mind raced with questions. Would the mayor intervene? Justice come for him? He braced himself for what might happen next. When the cruiser doors opened, he hoped that someone in authority would finally listen. Despite the rough cuffs and the rougher treatment, he held on to his calm. He knew that by staying level-headed and using the voice he had calling the mayor's office, he might just turn things around. And in that moment, as he stepped out into the fluorescent glare of the station's lobby, he felt a quiet determination. This was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning. Marcus Hale felt the weight of the handcuffs as they bit into his wrists. The metal pressed into his skin, making his fingers tingle. He stood stiff and silent as Officers Daniels and Peters guided him through the dimly lit garage. Every echo of their footsteps on the concrete made his heart pound. He tried to breathe steadily, but the tight cuffs made each inhale shallow. They reached the patrol car, its door swinging open with a low thud. Marcus kept his head down as the taller officer roughly pushed him inside. He winced when his shoulders scraped against the metal frame. The back seat was cold and narrow. Marcus slipped onto the hard bench, his legs barely fitting. The officer crouched beside him and snapped the seatbelt over his chest, even though Marcus had done nothing to deserve it. "Don't even think about moving," Officer Daniels warned, his voice low and harsh. Marcus nodded, though his mouth was dry. He stared at the small barred window that separated him from the front seat. Through it, he saw the 2 officers climb in and settle behind the wheel. The car idled for a moment in silence, save for a faint hum of the engine and the distant drip of water somewhere in the garage. As the car began to roll, Marcus's mind replayed every moment that led him here. He had simply parked, shown his ID, and been honest. Yet these 2 men had treated him like a criminal. His chest tightened as anger mixed with fear. He pressed his back against the seat, arms pinned behind him. He felt helpless. The patrol car rolled forward, following the same path Marcus had walked minutes before. He recognized the yellow lines painted on the concrete, guiding cars to the exit ramp. The hum of tires on the ground was louder here. He dared a glance at the security cameras mounted overhead. He wondered whether they had recorded what happened, whether anyone would see the truth. Through the bars, he watched Officer Peters glance in his direction. Peter's eyes flickered with annoyance. He tapped the steering wheel, as if the simple sight of Marcus annoyed him. Marcus swallowed hard, keeping his gaze straight ahead. He refused to let them see him brake. They passed the exit, and the car climbed the ramp toward the street. The bright sunlight at the top of the garage entrance blinded Marcus for a moment. When his eyes adjusted, he saw familiar buildings and the steady flow of traffic. Cars slowed as they approached the parked patrol car. Drivers peeked in, curious to see what was happening. Some shook their heads. Marcus felt a surge of hope. Perhaps someone would call attention to his unfair arrest. Then the cruiser's lights flashed on. The red and blue beams cut through the afternoon heat as they merged into traffic. Marcus braced himself as cars parted around them. He kept his back straight, chin up and heart steady. He would not give them the satisfaction of fear on his face. The ride continued in tense silence. The two officers spoke in low voices about paperwork and probable cause, words Marcus could not fully hear. He closed his eyes and tried to count his breaths. 1, 2, 3. Each number helped ground him. He pictured his wife's kind smile when he got home, the warm dinner waiting on the table. He imagined his daughter's laugh as she told him about her day at school. Those images gave him strength. Suddenly, the car turned sharply and came to a stop. The doors opened and Marcus was tugged out roughly. The bright sunlight made him squint. He stood on the sidewalk in front of the police station. The building loomed with tall glass windows and a heavy wooden door. The station's name was etched into a stone arch above the entrance. Officer Daniels shoved Marcus forward. Marcus stumbled, but caught himself. His cuffs rattled. He took one careful step, then another. His shoulder ached where the officer had pushed him. He clenched his jaw, refusing to cry out. Inside the lobby, the air felt cool and sterile. A long counter stretched across the room. A deputy sat behind it, typing on a computer. The walls were bare, except for a bulletin board covered in flyers about community meetings. Marcus stood by the counter, head bowed, wrists still bound. Officer. Peter spoke to the deputy, his voice sharp. He's our detainee from the garage at 5th and Main, Peter said. Stopped him for loitering, he resisted arrest. He paused and gave Marcus a pointed look. He tried to call the mayor. The deputy glanced up, eyebrows raised. Marcus met the deputy's eyes. He saw surprise, maybe concern. He wondered if his call was already making a ripple. The deputy reached for a clipboard and handed it to Officer Daniels. Daniels ripped off a sheet and wrote down Marcus's information: name, date of birth, address, and the alleged offenses. Marcus stood silent while the officer wrote. He felt like an object in someone's file, not a person with dreams and a life. When Daniels finished, he tore the sheet free and handed it back. You'll read this before you sign, he said to Marcus, tossing the paper onto the counter. Then he turned and spoke to the deputy. Lock him up in holding cell 4. I need to finish the report? Marcus watched as the officers walked away. The deputy peered at the paper, then pushed it across to Marcus. Loitering and resisting arrest jumped out at him. He stared at the fine print under a fluorescent light. It said he could request a phone call, but only after booking. He tucked his chin and reached for a pen. His hands shook, not from fear, but anger. He signed at the bottom, trying to keep his letters steady. He felt the weight of the paper burn the pad of his fingers. When he finished, the deputy collected the form and slid it into a folder. You can make one call now, the deputy said quietly. He unlocked a door behind the counter and waved Marcus inside. The corridor beyond the door was narrow and lined with cell doors. Each door had a small window with thick vertical bars. The floor was shiny, but scuffed from years of use. The lights buzzed overhead. The deputy led Marcus to the 4th door. He flicked the lock and shoved Marcus inside. The cell was tiny and gray. A bench was bolted to one wall. Stainless steel toilet sat in the corner. Small window near the ebb. Ceiling let in a sliver of daylight. Marcus stepped in and felt the cell door close behind him with a heavy thud. The lock clicked. He was alone. He sat on the bench and took a deep breath. The bench was hard, but he welcomed the steadiness it gave. Flexed his wrists, feeling the raw marks the cuffs had left. He pressed his palms against the metal rings, imagining they would loosen soon. He looked around the cell. It was simple, no frills, only cold walls and a bright light overhead. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed with one hand even though he risked a scolding for handling electronics in a cell. His mind raced.
Okay.
He could call his wife, his lawyer, or the mayor's office directly. To call the mayor again? Press speaker mode so the deputy monitoring the hallway could hear if they were listening. The phone rang. He heard the ringing tone echo off the cell walls. He focused on the sound, letting it steady him. After a moment, a voice answered. Mayor Sanders' office, a calm female voice said, "How may I direct your call?" Marcus's voice was steady. "Hello, this is Marcus Hale again, being held on false charges at the station downtown. I'd like to speak with the mayor or her chief of staff immediately. It's urgent." There was a pause. Marcus heard soft footsteps on carpet. Then the voice returned, more serious. "We've received your earlier voicemail. The mayor is aware of your situation. She's asking for an update now. Can you tell me your exact location and condition?" Marcus felt a spark of hope, gave his cell location, described how they had taken him inside, and said his hands were sore from the tight cuffs. He remained calm as he spoke. He waited while the voice conferred with someone else. In the silence that followed, Marcus noticed how quiet the station felt. No distant chatter, no radio chatter, only the soft hum of the overhead light. He realized his voice was echoing, pictured his wife rushing to help, calling his lawyer, telling their daughter her father would be home soon. Then the phone crackled back to life. "Someone will meet you at the booking desk soon," the scheduler said. "Please hold on. The mayor has requested your release once the officers provide their side. She will see you in the next hour." Marcus closed his eyes and felt relief mixed with lingering anger. He straightened on the bench. He held on to the promise that soon he would be free. And when that happened, he would make sure his story mattered, would turn this painful moment into a force for change. He would hold those officers accountable. He would show his community that calm determination can overcome injustice. ChatGPT said. Marcus sat in the back of the patrol car, the chill from the metal cage seeping through his jacket. His wrists still stung from the tight cuffs, and each small movement reminded him of the rough way they had handled him. Through the little barred window, he could see the two officers in front. They did not speak to him. They only exchanged glances, their faces pinched with annoyance. The engine idled, echoing softly in the confined space. Marcus felt the hum in his chest, as well as in the car. He took a slow breath. His mind raced through everything he had prepared. He had shown them his ID and work permit, it explained. Who he was. Yet here he was treated like a criminal. Still, he knew panic would help no one. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought of his wife's gentle smile when he told her about today's meeting. He pictured his daughter's bright laugh as she described her school play. These thoughts calmed him. They reminded him of why he had to stay strong. Marcus shifted carefully so as not to jostle his arms too much against the cuffs. Into his inside coat pocket and felt his phone resting there. It was a lifeline. He imagined the mayor's forum where she had applauded his design for a new neighborhood park. He remembered her words, "Your work brings people together." He realized that if she heard of his situation, she would care. He unlocked the phone. With one finger, his heart hammered, but his grip was steady. He tapped the mayor's office contact. The screen showed a saved number under mayor's scheduler. He pressed call. The ringing tone felt louder in the quiet of the car. Officer Daniels turned his head for a moment, as if surprised Marcus dared to use the phone. Peters leaned forward, eyes narrowing, but neither man reached to stop him. On speaker mode, the call connected. A polite female voice answered. "Mayor Sanders' office. How can I direct your call?" Marcus kept his voice calm. He spoke clearly and without anger. "Hello, this is Marcus Hale. I'm an architect. Being held in a patrol car at the garage under false charges. I need to speak with Mayor Sanders or her chief of staff. This is urgent." He gave his exact location, the garage name, and the badge numbers of the officers who had detained him. He described how they had taken him from his car, despite his polite cooperation. The woman on the line paused. Marcus imagined her listening, maybe taking notes. He heard soft typing in the background. After a few moments, the scheduler responded, "Thank you, Mr. Hale. We received your earlier voicemail. The mayor is aware of your call. She wants an immediate update. Are you safe? Are you injured?" The concern in her voice gave Marcus a small boost. He realized she believed him, and that feeling made his chest relax a bit. "I'm not badly hurt," he said, "just sore wrists and a bit shaken. The cuffs are tight, and they took me to headquarters. I'm fine, aside from that." He spoke honestly. He did not want them to think he was exaggerating, but he did want help. "Please send someone. I've been polite. I just want to go home." He heard the scheduler speak quietly to someone else, then return. "Thank you. The mayor has instructed her legal team to intervene. They're sending someone now. We'll stay on the line until an officer arrives." Marcus looked through the small window again and saw Peter's glance back at him. The officer's forehead creased. He tapped the steering wheel lightly. Marcus felt a slight triumph. His calm voice had reached beyond the patrol car. Now the officers might feel the weight of higher authority. He hung up and pocketed the phone. Despite the metal bars, the car felt less like a cell. He pressed his shoulders back and looked ahead. The city street rolled by outside the window. He saw a bakery with fresh bread in the display, a florist with bright bouquets, and pedestrians walking dogs along the sidewalk. Life went on around him. He reminded himself that he would be part of it again soon. A few minutes later, the cruiser came to a halt in front of the station steps. He heard the roar of the engine cut off. Daniels opened his door and stepped out. Peters followed, leaving the back door slightly ajar. Light spilled in. A fresh breeze shifted Marcus's hair. He heard footsteps on the pavement, voices talking too softly to understand. Marcus stood, careful not to let the cuffs pull his arms. His shoulders ached, but he felt ready. The door swung open fully. Peters leaned in. "You called the mayor?" he asked, disbelief in his tone. Marcus met his eyes. "Yes," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "I called because this is not right." Peters stared at him as if Marcus had spoken in a foreign tongue. Then he spit on the ground and walked away without another word. Marcus stepped out and stood on the curb. He lifted his head, searching for any sign of an ally. The station entrance was busy with officers coming and going. He saw a uniformed deputy talking into a radio. Marcus waved. The deputy looked up, locked eyes with him, then hurried over. Marcus noticed the deputy's badge said Community Liaison. "Mr. Hale?" the deputy asked, voice low. "I'm Officer Ramirez," the mayor's office called.
"I want you?"
Out of handcuffs and into a safe room right away. Relief surged through Marcus. He nodded. Ramirez stepped close and whispered, "I've seen the messages. I know what's happened. We'll sort this quickly." Ramirez produced a key ring and unlocked the cuffs with practiced ease. Marcus felt an immediate rush as the metal fell. Away, his wrists tingled from the tightness, but the pain was fading. Ramirez guided him through the station doors. The lobby felt more open now. Officers paused to look, then went back to their tasks. The deputy led Marcus down a corridor. The walls were painted a calm blue and framed photos showed community events and neighborhood cleanups. Ramirez stopped at a set of double doors labeled Mayor's Safe Room. He pushed them open and ushered Marcus inside. The room was simple and bright. A round table sat in the center, surrounded by 4 chairs. Fresh water and glasses were on a small side table. Marcus sank into a chair and exhaled deeply. Ramirez pulled out his phone and dialed a number on speaker. "Legal team of Mayor Sanders. This is Officer Ramirez of Precinct 4. I have Mr. Marcus Hale here as requested," a voice answered. Ramirez spoke quickly and clearly. On the other end, Marcus could hear muffled conversation. A moment later, the line crackled, and the scheduler's voice came through again. "Thank you, Officer Ramirez. We appreciate your help. Mr. Hale, the mayor will meet you in person in about 30 minutes. Please stay where you are." The call ended. Ramirez offered Marcus a glass of water. He accepted gratefully, taking slow sips. The cool liquid felt soothing as it slid down his throat. He looked around the safe room, noticing a soft couch and a few magazines on a coffee table. Outside the small window, sunlight filtered through a tree. It felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the cold garage and the cramped patrol car. Ramirez cleared his throat. "If you need anything more water? A phone call? Anything, just let me know. You're safe here." Marcus nodded. He felt a surge of gratitude. After all the rough handling, someone here cared about his well-being. He unfolded his hands and rolled his shoulders. The tightness of his shirt and jacket suddenly felt heavy. He loosened the collar and unbuttoned his top button. Air brushed across his skin, making him feel alive again. As he waited, Marcus thought about what had just happened. He thought about his family and how seeing his calm strength had helped them feel less afraid. He thought about his community and how his work as an architect had always been about creating safe, welcoming spaces. Now, ironically, the mayor's safe room was keeping him safe. He let himself feel hope. He knew there would be questions, there would be reports, and there would be a chance to hold those officers accountable. But more than that, he saw an opportunity to improve things for everyone, not just himself. 30 minutes passed slowly. Then, the door opened gently. A tall woman in a dark suit entered. Her badge said Chief of Staff. She had a kind expression but firm eyes. She approached Marcus and offered her hand. "Mr. Hale, thank you for your patience," she said, her voice warm. "Mayor Sanders sends her deepest apologies for what happened. She is on her way now to speak with you herself." Marcus stood to greet her. He felt nervous, but resolute. He gave a small nod of thanks. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "I appreciate her concern. I only want to ensure this never happens to anyone else." The Chief of Staff nodded. "That is exactly the mayor's intention. She wants to work with you on police training and community outreach. She believes your experience can help shape positive change." A sense of purpose filled Marcus's chest. The pain in his wrists was fading beneath it. He realized how his calm decision to call for help had set in motion a path toward real progress. As he sat back down, he prepared himself not only to share his story but to turn his ordeal into a chance to make the city safer and fairer for everyone. And when the mayor arrived moments later, he would be ready. The precinct hallway buzzed with low voices as Marcus Hale stepped out of the safe room. His wrists no longer bore the sting of tight metal, but he still felt the ache in his shoulders from the rough handling earlier. He set one foot in front of the other, following Officer Ramirez past a row of metal lockers and framed photos of community events. Each click of his polished shoes echoed off the tile floor. The air smelled faintly of cleaning spray and coffee. They stopped outside a glass-walled office where the sergeant on duty stood waiting. Sergeant Morales was a broad-shouldered woman with graying hair pulled into a neat bun. Her crisp uniform carried spotless creases. She offered Marcus a respectful nod, though her expression was guarded. "Mr. Hale," she said, voice steady, "thank you for your patience. I need to take your statement and review the officer's body camera footage. After that, you will be free to go." Marcus met her gaze calmly. He realized how important this moment would be. He thought of the bruises on his arms and the tear in his jacket. He thought of his family waiting anxiously at home. But above all, he thought of the people in his community who trusted him to build safe spaces. He would see this through. Inside the office, Morales pulled 2 chairs up to a simple desk. One chair Marcus took and settled into, careful not to stretch his jacket too much. Morales sat opposite him with a clipboard and a pen. The morning sun filtered through a window behind her, casting a soft glow on her notes. On the far wall, a monitor flickered, paused on the garage's security camera feed. "Before we begin," Morales said, flipping open her notebook, "I want to apologize on behalf of the department. What you experienced does not reflect our values. We will get to the bottom of this." Her tone was sincere, and Marcus felt a small wave of relief. He nodded and exhaled slowly. Letting the tension ease from his shoulders, he described every detail, speaking clearly and deliberately. He told Morales about the client meeting, about how he walked to his car with blueprints in hand, recalled. The sudden approach of the officers, their harsh questions, and the moment Daniels twisted his arm behind his back, I spoke of the painful click of the cuffs and the rough ride in the patrol car. He even mentioned the security guard who tried to help, but was told to stand down. Morales jotted notes, her pen moving swiftly. She asked gentle follow-up questions. The exact words the officers used, the color of their uniforms, any damage to his clothing. Marcus answered each one, grateful that someone was listening. When he spoke of dialing the mayor's office, Morales paused and looked up. That was courageous, she said quietly. It helped bring a swift response. By the time Marcus finished, he felt lighter. He saw the lines of stress fade from Morales's forehead as she closed her notebook. Thank you, she said. Your statement will guide our internal affairs review. Next, we'll review the body cam footage. You are welcome to watch alongside us. They left the office and walked down the hall to a small viewing room. Inside, a flat-screen TV hung on the wall above a low cabinet. A table with 4 chairs faced it. Morales reached for a remote control and turned on the screen. The footage from the security camera at Garage C loaded first. They watched as Marcus, parked, set his tablet on the seat, and calmly showed his ID. Then 2 figures appeared, Daniels and Peters, casting long shadows in the fluorescent light. The officers questioned Marcus, their voices muffled, but their body language clear. Out. The screen showed Daniels grab Marcus's arm, then the 2 of them pushing him toward the patrol car. Next. The officers' own body cam footage played. The view shifted to their eye level. The camera rattled slightly as Daniels marched Marcus through the garage. Viewers heard Marcus's calm protests and the officers' curt commands. Footage made the uneven treatment starkly obvious. Morales pressed pause. She turned off the monitor and faced Marcus. We will also show this to the district attorney's office, she said. They will decide on any charges against the officers. For now, you are cleared of any wrongdoing. You may leave when you're ready. Marcus felt a rush of relief and gratitude. He offered Morales a small smile. Thank you, he said. I appreciate the thorough review. Outside the viewing room, a reporter waited in the lobby. A small news crew had gathered, their cameras slung over shoulders and microphones at the ready. They had been tipped off by the mayor's office. Spotting Marcus emerging with a police sergeant, they stepped forward. Flashing lights from cameras filled the hallway. Reporters called out, Mr. Hale, can you comment? And what will you do next? Marcus paused, searching for the words he wanted. He straightened his back and crossed his arms calmly. He looked into the camera lens and spoke in clear, gentle tones. Today, I experienced something no one should face. I cooperated fully and asked only for a fair process. I am thankful the department is reviewing what happened. I hope my story leads to training that prevents this from happening again. The cameras clicked as he spoke. That moment, Marcus realized his voice could help others. After the brief statement, he stepped away from the cameras. Morales walked beside him to the front desk. Ramirez appeared with a folded jacket in hand. He helped Marcus slip into it, adjusting the collar. The deputy gave a respectful nod. Take care, he said. Marcus gathered his belongings, his tablet, his jacket and walked to the exit. The station doors swung open and sunlight streamed in. Outside, the city bustled. People glanced his way, some offering sympathetic smiles. He took a deep breath of fresh air. The warmth of the sun made him feel alive again. He thought of the mayor's impending meeting. He would share his experience, his ideas for bias training, and his vision for community police partnerships. He hoped those conversations would spark real change. He had shown calm courage today, and now he would use that strength to help others. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, his phone buzzed. It was a text from his wife. Are you okay? Love you. He tapped a quick reply. I'm free. On my way home. Can't wait to see you. He pocketed the phone and began walking. Each step felt lighter than before. Marcus reached his car, a few blocks away. He unlocked it, slid in behind the wheel, and sat for a moment, fingers on the steering wheel. He stared at the buildings around him, his community, the place he loved, whispered to himself, this ends now. He started the engine and drove off, determined to turn today's hardship into tomorrow's progress. He would not stop until everyone felt as safe and respected as they deserved. And with that promise in his heart, Marcus Hale headed home. Marcus felt the late afternoon sun warm his face as he stepped away from his car. Leaves rustled gently in the breeze, and distant voices of neighbors drifted through the air. He took a slow breath, letting relief and hope settle in his chest. Just hours ago, he had been cuffed in a cold cell. Now, he was walking toward City Hall, ready for the meeting the mayor had promised. Inside the grand building, marble floors gleamed under bright lights. A receptionist smiled as Marcus passed. He felt a quiet pride mixed with nerves. He adjusted his jacket, smoothed his hair, and reminded himself why he was here. He wanted change, real change, so no one else would suffer as he did. A few minutes later, a door opened, and he was led into a warm, wood-paneled room. Soft light filtered through tall windows. At the head of a long table sat Mayor Sanders, her face kind but serious. Around her were advisors, community leaders, and a representative from the police department. Marcus's heart pounded, but he kept his voice calm as he greeted everyone. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said. "We spoke directly to the mayor. What happened to me today should never happen to anyone. I know most officers serve our community well, but bias and fear can turn good people into bad actors. I want to help fix that." The mayor nodded. "We are here to listen and act," she said. "Your courage in calling my office brought attention to a real problem. I am sorry you endured that pain. Now let's talk solutions." Marcus cleared his throat and unfolded his ideas. He described a new training program for officers. It would include role-play exercises, where they practice calm communication and respect. He suggested regular community meetings where residents and police could talk as equals, sharing stories and building trust. He proposed a civilian oversight committee that reviewed complaints fairly and offered feedback. As he spoke, people took notes and asked questions, curious questions. Marcus shared moments from his ordeal, the cold metal of the cuffs, the fear in his chest, the moment he dared to call for help. He spoke of the beauty he saw in his community, the bright murals he designed, the families he met at local events, the way people smiled when they recognized his work. He urged everyone to remember the human faces behind each call, each traffic stop, each arrest. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the mayor spoke. "These are excellent ideas," she said. "We will launch a pilot program. Next month," she turned to the police representative. "Captain Lewis, can your department work with Mr. Hale to design this training?" Captain Lewis nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yes, Mayor. Mr. Hale, I would be honored to work with you. We want officers to understand how their actions affect citizens. Your insight is invaluable." Marcus felt a surge of hope. He realized his pain could create a safer world. As the meeting wrapped up, he agreed to serve on the oversight committee and help plan outreach events. The mayor thanked him and promised to keep him updated on every step. Outside the conference room, Marcus's phone buzzed. It was his wife. She asked if he needed anything, if he was okay. He replied that he was fine and excited for what lay ahead. He smiled at the message, picturing her concern turned to relief. When he got home, word of the meeting spread quickly. Local news outlets reported on the new training and oversight plans. Headlines praised the mayor's swift action and Marcus's advocacy. Social media buzzed with supportive comments. Neighbors thanked him for speaking up. Community leaders offered to volunteer, and families shared stories of positive interactions with police. Marcus felt the warmth of collective goodwill. Within, Daisy joined his first planning session at the police academy. Officers wore navy uniforms and badges that gleamed under fluorescent lights. An instructor led the session, and Marcus listened as they discussed scenarios. He offered suggestions. In this situation, an officer might slow down their tone to a soft, respectful level. They could introduce themselves and explain their reason for stopping someone. He spoke in simple terms, using clear examples, and officers nodded as they took in his words. Afterward, Marcus walked through the parking lot. He saw a dozen officers together, chatting with neighbors at a community barbecue. Laughter rose above the smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs. Children played with a soccer ball, and an older woman offered flowers she grew in her garden. Marcus recognized the security guard who had tried to help him. The guard waved, and Marcus crossed the lot to say hello. They exchanged smiles to members of the same community working toward safety. That evening, Marcus returned home. His wife greeted him at the door with a hug so tight it squeezed the stress out of him. Their daughter ran to him, her arms wrapped around his leg as she asked, "Did you win, Dad?" He knelt and held her, telling her all about the meeting and the new program. She listened with wide eyes. Later, over dinner, he told his wife of the mayor's plan and the training sessions. They toasted to progress, to healing, and to the power of one voice to spark change. In the weeks that followed, Marcus worked closely with the Oversight Committee. They met at community centers and libraries, and sometimes by video link. They reviewed complaints, suggested policy updates, and planned public forums. Marcus helped design a simple feedback form for residents who had police contact. The form asked if the officer introduced themselves, explained the reason for the stop, and treated them with respect. It was just a small sheet of paper, but Marcus knew simple. Tools often have the greatest power. Meanwhile, the city council held hearings. Marcus shared his story before a panel. He spoke without anger, focusing on solutions. Council members asked questions, promising to allocate funds for the training and oversight work. They passed a resolution to include bias training in every officer's ongoing education. Marcus felt a deep satisfaction as the chairman hammered his gavel, sealing the plan into law. One sunny morning, a ribbon-cutting ceremony took place at the new Community Police Center. A bright blue sign welcomed everyone to a place built on trust. Marcus stood beside the mayor, scissors in hand. The crowd cheered as they snipped the ribbon. Then officers, residents, and children walked through the open doors together. Inside, walls were painted with murals of families and officers shaking hands. Tables displayed the new feedback forms and brochures explaining rights during police encounters. Marcus watched a mother and her son work on a poster about respect. He saw an officer kneel to speak kindly with a teenager. He felt his heart fill with pride. Years of hard work and hope had turned into a living proof that change was possible. That night, Marcus sat on his porch. The sky was deep blue, and stars glimmered overhead. He sipped tea and reflected on the journey. He felt grateful for his own courage to speak up, for the mayor's quick response, for the many people who joined the effort. He thought of the officers who had wronged him and hoped they had learned from the investigation and training. He hoped they would treat others with dignity. He glanced at the city lights in the distance and whispered a promise into the night. "I will never stop working for justice and safety. This city will be better because we listened, learned, and cared." A soft breeze rustled the leaves, as if agreeing. And Marcus Hale, once cuffed and beaten, now stood free to build a safer, fairer world, one simple act of respect at a time.